Good morning!
Good morning, Father Jeff.
Morning is broken.
We are your consecrated hosts.
Father Jeff, consecrated by holy orders.
Jonathan, consecrated by baptism.
How are you? Another week?
Good. I'm a little bit depressed, actually.
No, why? Why now? It's beautiful. It's another day of...
The greatest month is quickly drawing to a close.
We still have several days.
I just realized something, though, on the way to come here.
What's that?
Biblically
speaking.
What is the perfect number?
7.
All right. Now, September is not the 7th month.
It is not. It used to be.
Because it was perfect. It was given the 7th name. Because it is the perfect month.
Jonathan, we're long past that. Your birthday is way past gone.
We are still in my birthday month.
That matters. That matters not.
Oh, it matters everything.
That matters not. Did you have fun at the Fall Festival this weekend?
Yep. Did you?
I did too. You know, I like walking around and I don't really, maybe I'll throw a dime into the dime toss or, whatever. But actually, I like to kind of park at the ticket booth and because that's where everybody is going to eventually.
Right.
So I'm able just to kind of greet everyone, say hi to everyone, hang out there, chit-chat with whoever's taking the tickets and... Yeah, it's nice.
The dime toss setup this year was something else.
Well, it used to be kind of a different... Yes, we had to spread everything out. So the silent auction was all spread out differently, and the dime toss was all spread out. The games were set up... I mean, everything was set up differently, just because of spreading things out and wanting to be careful. And, it's... you never know what the weather's going to do. Sometimes it's been super cold and rainy, or it's been windy, or it's been... hot and humid.
It's been a while since it's been hot or humid.
Well, yeah, we have. Thank goodness it switched. I mean, if we had done this on Saturday, it would have been just a little... I mean, it would have been fine, probably. But it's always nice when you can have the doors open, and even if it is a little drizzly or rainy or misty outside, you can still have the doors open. Mm-hmm. But I thought this weekend was just fine. I liked it. It was good. So hopefully we did well. I haven't heard the final count. No. Thank you for all who supported the Fall Festival and came out or bought things from the silent auction on home. I hope the online, the website sign-up things. I don't know. I'm losing my words today.
I don't know how that was working because I didn't even get to go.
Yeah,
I was there. I was talking on the microphone all day. So people.
I'm surprised you still have a voice. I even gave him the day off yesterday. Like, you know what? Let's just close the office down the day after Fall Festival. Everybody was there all day and putting in extra time.
I know. I was pleading with you for the last few months to get the day off, so you do have some mercy. You weren't like Mr. Scrooge.
I believe you also took the Monday prior off, too.
I worked a little from home.
Whatever. Today is the feast of the Holy Archangels,
which we will now call upon.
Which kind of is a fitting feast as we go through. In fact, this week we get the Holy Archangels today, and then on October 2nd, the Holy Guardian Angels. So this is like Angel Week. So it's kind of like Shark Week, but this is the Catholic version, Angel Week.
Dun dun dun.
So today is St. Michael, St. Raphael, St. Gabriel, or Michael, Gabriel, Raphael would be the traditional ordering of them. So Michael, we think of Michael as the prince of the heavenly host, the guy with the sword and the scales and the warrior, and usually thrusting the evil one out of heaven or the dragon or whatever it's set up to be. Michael, his name literally means who is like God. And it's a question, like Michael, who is like God? It's that, because remember, the devil, Lucifer, was the one who wanted to be like God. And Michael, as the perfect mirror of him, is like, who is like God? No, I don't think so. And so he comes back with the perfect response, who could be like God? Not me. So get the hell out. Here we go again. So Michael, patron of the military, soldiers, the police, anybody really in defense. And that's Michael's patronage.
Awesome.
Yeah. Gabriel, a name which means God's strength. And Gabriel is he appears a couple times in the New Testament to what's his face? Zechariah in the temple, the father of John the Baptist. And Gabriel appears in the temple and says, "Hey, you're going to give birth to that forerunner of the Messiah." And Zechariah's like, really? I'm not so sure about that. And Gabriel strikes him mute.
Yep.
Let me show you.
I'm going to shut you up.
Let me shut you up, mister. And then Gabriel appears to the Virgin Mary. And I think it's Gabriel who appears to Daniel in the Old Testament. I think he's the one that appears.
That sounds right to me.
I think so. Gabriel's the one that appears to Daniel and gives him the fortitude to survive the lion's den.
They should make a movie about that.
Maybe they have. Well, it's a short little story.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's probably it's a cartoon I know of.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, and children's books and what have you. And then Raphael, probably the least. Some pronounce it Raphael. I have always pronounced it Raphael. He's probably the least.
Pronounce it Raphael.
Oh yeah, Raphael. But that's like the Renaissance artist.
Right.
He was named after the artist, not the angel. But
Correct.
the artist was probably named after the angel. Raphael's seen in the Old Testament. He is the guide to Tobias in the book of Tobit.
Oh.
On the way to do some healing and to effect a good marriage. And so often you'll see a statue of Gabriel, often in the Annunciation, carrying the lily rod or whatever, because he's announcing these good tidings, the blossoming of the Savior. So the new life coming from that stump of Jesse. So Gabriel's often holding the lily rod. And Raphael is often seen carrying a pilgrim staff, sometimes with a fish dangling from it. Because in the scriptures, in order to heal Tobit's blindness, he uses the fish gall or whatever, rubs it in his eyes, and is healed. So the name Raphael means God's remedy, God's healing. So he really is not only a patron of pilgrim travelers, waywarders, whatever, but also a patron of healing. Gabriel would, of course, be a patron of messengers, those in the media and telecommunications and things like that. So, yeah, the three holy archangels today. Oh, it's Rosemary Cottle's birthday today, as I remember. She was my my business manager, office person in Hardington when I was there. She has since retired from that position. But happy birthday, Rosemary, if you happen to be watching, or if anybody, I think it's your birthday. I'm pretty sure it is. Happy birthday. So, that's a thing. What is an angel, Jonathan? We've been talking about these demons. What is an angel?
A spiritual
quiz.
being. A spiritual being?
You're a spiritual being.
Yes, but I'm also a physical being.
He's also got a corpus. He's got a body there.
Yeah, so they don't have bodies.
They don't. No.
They were created by God, because everything's created by God.
Yep.
So, I don't know how to describe an angel.
I think we talked about this right when we
bit.
started at the Screwtape letters, but in case you've forgotten, an angel, a pure spirit, intellectual being with memory and will, just like our spirit, except ours is attached to a body. Angels are neither masculine nor feminine, since they don't have a body. They're often portrayed in Scripture in male form because they are images of God the Father appearing in the world. The word angel literally means a messenger. An archangel is a messenger of great importance. And so the holy archangels were those three that brought great messages to humanity, or were involved in salvation in such an important way.
So very significant.
They were significant. But interestingly enough, in the traditional 9 choirs of angels, angels would fall on the very 9th bottom, closest to humanity. Archangels are number 2. You often think of Michael as being like, whoop!
Yeah, the head angel.
But yeah, he's Prince of the Heavenly Host, but apparently only the heavenly host on level 2. He's like a lieutenant or something down
So
there.
there's 7 steps above?
And there's all these other ones.
Do you know all 7?
I don't know if I could put them all in order. I know the very top ones are the seraphim.
Oh yeah, the cherubim
And the cherubim. So those are the top 2. The seraphim are the ones that are on fire, in a sense, because of their closeness to God. That they shield not only their own faces, but their whole bodies from God's presence.
Wow.
And shield His presence from the world. And so the seraphim are that's how they're always depicted, as you'll see the 6-winged seraphim. 2 wings covering their head, 2 covering their bodies and their bottoms, and 2 that elevate them in flight.
Oh.
The
So they don't
cherubim,
have bodies.
again, no bodies. These
how
are
they're
just
depicted.
depictions, exactly. The cherubim are described as, I think, kind of the ones that move God's glory. I think it was a cherubim that was stationed outside of paradise. It's described, who carries the flaming sword. And the defenders of God that surround him, and his power is emitted through them. So there's the top 2 and there's the bottom 2, and so that leaves 1, 2, 3, 4. That leaves 5 choirs in between. Now these, I'm not exactly sure the complete order of them, but it would be the thrones, the powers, the principalities, the virtues, and the dominions.
Well, look at that.
We got them all, but I really don't know what order all those go in.
But you do, because you can see
Because
the graphic.
I'm sure Jonathan is going to post something right here in between us. Look at this. I am looking at it now, as you can see the graphic. Holy Archangels, Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, or Raphael, pray for us.
Pray for us.
Exactly. Whew. Well, I suppose we should dive into the Screwtape letters. What did you do?
That's, the black bugs?
Oh, those little black bugs that bite.
Yeah, it bit me right here yesterday.
It's so nice to sit outside, but when you're outside, I'm doing okay apparently. But when you're outside, it's like, these little black bugs.
Oh, when we were moving, those black bugs were terrorizing us.
Yeah, I tried to sit outside in the back patio in the evenings, and it's just like,
I don't even know what they are, but
they're the little black bugs that bite.
They probably have a name.
I'm sure they do.
It's terrible.
Are you going to post that here in between? No, we're not.
I'm not
going to
look that up.
there. No looking up the little black bugs.
They don't deserve that much time.
No recognition.
I have never seen them before this year.
Ever in your life?
They've never bitten me like this.
Do you live under a rock?
I don't. Live
I remember growing up when we used to when clotheslines were a thing. Because as a kid, we always had to hang clothes out on the line.
Like clotheslines,
clotheslines.
Apparel or clothes.
No. And we would hang out. We would have to hang the bed sheets and everything out because Mom really always liked the fresh air and the bed sheets.
Back when clothespins were actually used to hang up.
Hang up clothes, exactly. And we'd always have to be real careful to shake them out when the fall rolled around because the little black bugs, of course, bright, a white or a cream colored sheet, it just attracts them all.
Interesting.
Where we open the windows and the screens are just big enough where those little black bugs can get in, and you start getting them in the house, and it's like, those windows have to get closed.
See, that wasn't a thing down in Texas.
Oh, you grew up in Texas.
God
That's
bless
the
Texas.
problem. Number 20. We are 2/3 of the way through the booklet. 2/3 through our letters. Practically. 20 out of 31. That's practically. Plus a little toast at the end. So this chapter, I don't find terribly exciting.
It's filled with truth.
There's stuff in it, but it seems like the last several chapters we've kind of been, it's like we got stuck, and I'm ready to move on. And I would say let's just go to chapter 21 right now. But I suppose we can look at a few highlights here, and then just hang out and chit chat for a while. How about that? All right. So basically, he is continuing on now. We've been talking about marriage and family life and how that can be a blessing, but also a curse, and the temptations that come in there. So we're looking at chastity, the virtue of chastity. And so he wants, you can directly attack this chastity, but right now it seems like that God has quelled this fellow's passions. So we're at a time where we need to attack him in other ways and direct him in other things. So he really starts talking about the eye as, the wandering eye. And how it's interesting that every culture has a different view of what is desirable or attractive. I don't know if you've ever seen, like, if you're scrolling through YouTube or on the internet, and it's like 100 years of what was considered attractive, and like they kind of show you like from 1900 to 2000, a fashion of a man or a fashion of a woman, or 500 years of, and you see, with the high collars and low, that once you lifted up the skirt a little bit and you began to see the stockings or the ankles of a woman, it was just like racy business here. And now you can plunge a neckline down to here and vacuum seal on a pair of pants, and it's incredible.
Incredible is one way to put it.
It's incredible to see the great difference.
Yes.
Basically, can we get our clothes any more skin tight, any more transparent, any more cut short or hiked up, whatever. It is, so he's just talking that it's interesting to see that in some ages, and you even look at art, I suppose, sometimes, and you see some of those arts where you have very curvy men and women. There's a lot of fleshiness on them. And that was seen as desirable because it was a sign of, health and well-being during ages of rampant sickness and disease and what have you. Other ages, you see very thin and slender and whatnot, because that's seen as a model of health and well-being. And so it's interesting how attractivity is often tied to attractiveness. I think that's the word. Attractivity is seen as health and well-being.
Yeah.
I remember we were talking about Vicky Thorne last week when we were discussing...
Was that just last week? It seems like it could have been 3 weeks ago.
No, it was just last week, Jonathan. We were talking about, she was, talk that both of us had heard at different times in different places, but she talks about how, the natural signs of attractiveness and how sometimes in our own society we skew those, or why we just naturally feel drawn, or why there's this thing, why a male physique in such a way, or why a woman's physique in such a way was a sign, why long hair was a sign of health. And that became then a sign, all these dead proteins hanging off of your head, but they
just failed to cut.
It signaled to a man that there was something right about the health and fertility of this woman. That there's all these biological signals that get put out there that we just have no idea why I find that attractive. And it typically has to do with, is this person going to be healthy and strong and capable of either having children or protecting me with my children? So it really does, attractiveness, I think, boils down a lot to some of the basic human stuff that we're just unaware of.
Subconscious.
Yeah, subconscious stuff going on. And so the evil one is pointing this out, and so he's like, well, why don't we just basically use this as advertising? Let's flash these things in front of this person so that we can exaggerate forms and exaggerate. So if a sign of health is whatever, being slender, then let's exaggerate that. So guys want to see, the Jessica Rabbit kind of silhouette where, it kind of does that. It's an hourglass where your waist is like that wide. So it's like, wow, that's kind of the curvy,
Or
sexy.
even the Barbie doll, which
the
is...
Barbie doll.
The proportions of a Barbie doll are...
Impossible. Well,
impossible.
And it's interesting. When I used to teach senior theology, I would show them a woman from Eastern Europe somewhere who had her body cosmetically changed so that she could be a living Barbie doll. And the amount of things that she had to go through to affect that. I mean, she had to have ribs removed.
Right? Because you
in
can't
order
get
to
thin
get your
enough.
waist that thin. She had to have her lips puffed up and her bottom puffed up and you know, her feet. It's like, are you serious?
It looks like a distortion of humanity. I mean, it does not...
Yeah, there's something very strange. It's creepy.
That's what we put in front of our little kids. And that's what has been, you know, and there's been talks of it, because I know they've come out with better proportioned Barbies and things like that, but yeah.
Yeah. Different races, different body types of Barbie, just to kind of begin thinking that, you know, you don't have to look like this. I was watching a show. Netflix puts out these couple series things that are, you know, if you grew up in the 80s, it's their amazing little journeys back into the toys that made us. Is a series on the toys that I grew up with in the 80s and my brother grew up with, so they were in the house. And they were talking about the He-Man character. It was like, you know, basically the first toy that made boys feel bad about their bodies. You know, because you have these hulking He-Man things, and video games would do the same thing. And there was a whole series on video games in High Score, it's called, on Netflix. And this is what I do when I don't want to think anymore. I just put on a mindless documentary. Take me back to the Transformers and my Star Wars
Back
figures.
to the good old days.
Back to the good old
They
days.
probably weren't actually as good as you remember
In
them.
the mid-'80s. Oh, it was good.
We just read about how it's not as good as you remember it being.
Fine. So, the high point. Where is this chapter all going, Jonathan?
The aim is to guide each sex away from those members of the other with whom spiritual, helpful, happy, and fertile marriages are most likely.
Yeah, we want you to fall in love with the bad boy. We want you to fall in love with the
Vixen?
girl, the vixen. I guess what would you call it?
I don't know.
Yeah, the ones that aren't going to be capable of fidelity, the ones that aren't going to be capable of true love, the ones that aren't going. We want you to be drawn to those where happy, healthy, faithful, fertile marriages are an impossibility.
Superficial, exterior, just no depth.
Yeah,
That's
not
what we
real.
want. Not real.
We want you to focus on something that's not real, and really zero in on that. And we've spoken about this before, and how this is what is so destructive with pornography, because that's exactly what it plays into. Let's create a scenario. Let's create a person. Let's create a situation, a relationship, a way of things happening, whatever. That's just not real, and couldn't be real or sustainable in any way, and make you long for that. Can't find it in real life, and you're left a little unhappy. And in fact, that's where it kind of builds. As a result, we are more and more directing the desires of men to something which does not exist, making the role of the eye in sexuality more and more important, and at the same time, making its demands more and more impossible. Men are attracted by what they see. And I think this is something I learned from Vicky Thorne as well, that attractiveness enters a man through the eye. That's what it takes. It takes 30 seconds to arouse a man. And I remember Vicky saying it takes 30 hours to arouse a woman. That if you know, that it's because it's what attracts on that end is less the eye and more the relationality. Do I feel that I'm going to be loved? Do I feel that the relationship is strong and supportive and surrounding me? For a man, none of that. It's the eye, and there it is.
Yep.
Very different the way this works, and so we don't understand each other's sexuality sometimes. You know, what, where, how, and what, and that's a gross generalization, of course. So you know, all of these things
because
are,
there is the emotional aspect of men, but just
absolutely.
the initial
attraction, the eye. So the eye is much more important, and so the wandering eyes. Guys can't help it. You know, how many times a man will come into the confessional and, this is a sin, my, wandering eyes. When is this going to be over for me, Father? I'm, into my 7th decade and, still wandering eyes. And it's like, well, I can tell you with certainty that will end when you are dead. So the fact that it's still happening is a sign that you are alive, in fact.
And it's not even... because I'm in a men's group, and we talk about these things all the time. And depending on how women dress or other things, and we won't get into the whole topic of modesty because that is
that's not this
that's a
chapter.
whole other that's not this chapter.
Well, that's kind of a little bit.
But the thing is men will have wandering eyes regardless of what women wear.
Yeah.
It's not because someone's wearing something skimpy and revealing everything that they have. If everyone was wearing loose jeans and hoodies,
eyes would still go.
Eyes would still follow.
Yeah, It's just the way it is. I don't know why. I'm sure someone can explain this, but that it is true. But that itself is not the sin. It's what you do with it that becomes the sin. Do now I continue to follow with my eyes?
Right. Are you looking or are you staring?
Do I continue, now do I use my eyes to undress and peel back? Do I then create thoughts in my head? Do I act upon that and send a text? Or do I follow? Or do I go stalking on the internet to find this person in states of undress or whatever?
Sure.
It's what we do with those wandering eyes. And that's not to say that women also don't have a wandering eye and catch the glance of and, look into whatever. But we're just talking from a man's perspective and what is known that this is a thing. This is what C.S. Lewis is talking about.
Right, and it's something you have to, as a man, you have to work on. It's like, you see someone and you stop yourself from following.
Yeah.
And it's, it's something, if you want to improve upon it, you have to actively engage in... You have to actively try not to do it.
Absolutely. One of my favorite, my absolute favorite television show of all time was Frasier. Loved it. Best TV show in the whole wide world. There is an episode on there where Frasier and his ex-wife are in a room together, in a hotel room, and in the next room over there is a young couple in there and they can hear them fighting. And so they open the door between the two rooms and they stumble upon one another, and so Frasier and his wife are psychiatrists, and so they set this couple down and they're telling them, and it's like, it bothers you, she's speaking one of them is speaking to the bride, and basically says, you're bothered that his eyes wander over to the other table where that young woman is sitting. It's going to happen because he's a man and he can't help himself. And then on the other hand, it's like, it bothers her, so be a man and get yourself in check. And I mean, it's like, this is the real thing. These are going to be realities, and there are human weaknesses. What do we do with our human weakness? So I guess since we're talking about the virtue of chastity here, whether male or female, chastity is that virtue that expresses love as God intended, a proper expression of love. We had a priest in seminary who counseled us that, gentlemen, if you're trying to work on the virtue of chastity, to grow in chastity, the worst thing you can do is pray for chastity and to focus on chastity, because chastity will always, no matter how it's oriented, is going to dip into love, which is going to dip into near occasion of sin, which is going to dip into your sex, all of these things. If you want to grow in chastity and to do so chastely, he encouraged us, focus on the virtue of charity. Because charity is true love. And if you grow in a love that is expressed and received perfectly, that is fulfilling. And when you are fulfilled, then chastity has a place to come in and strengthen fulfilled love. If you are not fulfilled, then you go looking for ways to fulfill, and chastity doesn't even have a chance to come in as a virtue. It's a supporting role. Chastity, I'm going to say, is the supporting role. It's never going to win the Best Actor award. Charity wins Best Actor. Chastity gets a Best Supporting Role. And that's really the thing. Chastity comes in as a support for charity. And so anybody who struggles with chastity, don't focus on that. Don't focus on, my pornography addiction, or my wandering eyes, or my wandering thoughts. Ask yourself, because if you tell yourself, don't think of a polar bear, don't think of a polar bear, what did you just do? You just saw a polar bear, didn't you? You can't do that. Don't think of sex, don't think of sex. I'm thinking of sex. In order to not do that, you have to focus on the positive. How do I live in charity? So in other words, what am I going to actively do to build someone else up? How am I going to actively will my spouse's good, or my love's good, or someone else's good? And if you do that, chastity will get right in line and follow behind.
Yeah. Because the good of them is not using them.
You're right.
For whatever it is.
Yeah. And chastity will be all over that. And chastity will get in that Congo line and, follow along charity.
But you're right, because if you focus on chastity, and let's say women, by their nature, God made them beautiful. It's just, that's what it is.
He made men beautiful too.
Yes.
All you guys out there who think you're ugly.
but so we are, regardless, like you said, we are going to be attracted to women until the day we die. Mm-hmm. Because God made us to be attracted to women. And so you cannot stop that. That person, 10 times out of 10, I will find attractive.
It's what it means to be human.
But am I trying to keep chaste? Well, that's a thin line that I'm drawing. Or am I trying to love them?
Love perfectly. Chastity,
and it's like, oh my
happens
gosh,
naturally.
God, you gave that woman beautiful, wonderful. God bless them.
But even that, and I don't even think that's often a thing that people will say. It's like if you're attracted and drawn to it, instead of going down that path, praise God for the beauty. I think that's even dangerous. I really do. I think that's, I don't know of too many people who can be that virtuous, and then all of a sudden, now I'm seeing, the high, it's like all of a sudden I've just turned 180 degrees from temptation. I don't think that works. I think the reality is avert the eyes, like you need to, but you always if you take something away, you always have to give something in its place. And that's why charity. Stop working on chastity. Work on charity. That is a surefire way, because there I am actually doing something and directing my attention to something that is good. And I think it might be just a little pie in the sky to say, oh, she's so beautiful. Praise you, God, for the glorious grandeur of her body and beauty. And I'm right back there. So it's very hard to lift up and give thanks for the beauty that you see, or to pray for that. Just redirect it altogether. Just redirect it. And that's what we just have to do. Focus on charity. Male, female, young or old, focus on charity. And getting married and being ordained does not put an end to that. And I often tell that to couples, that just because you get married doesn't mean you are never going to not notice someone in their attractiveness. Just because you get ordained doesn't mean you're not going to notice someone in their attractiveness. That you are still going to notice that. It's what you do with those things.
You're still human.
You're still human, and you still... Sexuality, remember, is the communication of self. You want to communicate yourself with others. How do you do it?
Yeah. And the call to priesthood doesn't mean that God's going to grant you this, like, oh, you're
You're
no
not
longer
asexual.
sexual
Priesthood
being.
is not asexuality. You're not an asexual being. That would make for a bad priest. You don't want a priest who doesn't feel and think and know the things that you feel and think and know. You want someone who's also human. But at the same time, you want someone who has clearly separated themselves a bit from that. Mm-hmm. And I think this is the genius, for the most part, of the celibate priesthood in the spiritual life, because it offers a sign that chastity is possible, that it is possible to love in that way, to die to self is possible, and especially how many people, and a lot of people don't think about this, widows and widowers struggle immensely with their sexuality after the death of a loved one. And I think widowers more so than widows, because they have been used to a conjugal life for so long and have built, I'm going to use the word force of habit, because there's the natural whatever that goes to that. But they've built that is now a part of who they are. And when their spouse is no longer with them, to take on celibacy can be a struggle. And so even if you are married, practicing moments of celibacy, and this is the genius of the modern versions of natural family planning and fertility care and those sorts of things, that you practice chastity and celibacy, because more than likely not, every one of you who are listening, whether married or single, are going to need to practice and live a life of celibacy at some point. Certainly before you're married, and when your spouse passes before you do. These are the realities. Be ready for it.
Yeah.
Don't want to drop some heaviness on it, but there it is. There's the heaviness.
Memento mori.
Always remember you're going to die. So let's just wrap this up, because we've gone longer than I thought we actually would. I'm like, we're not going to have anything to talk about in here, and we just put a quarter in me, and I start rambling. So basically, it's like the tension between the attraction to the physical and the attraction to the totally spiritual. And somewhere along the way, the virtuous one needs to bring both of those things together. Otherwise, we will live unhappily as an animal who's just after sex, or as one who's going to use the other for slavery. And we don't want either one of those. So, I titled mine, Loving the Fantasy. What struck you then?
Oh, good grief. I don't know if I'm happy with it, but it's what I just came up with.
I saw you write it down. Don't lie.
Yeah, I said, love, it's not just skin deep.
That's beautiful. Have a good day, everyone. See you tomorrow.